guys? I'm Nikki.
And I'm Trang.
This is Trang. And she is joining me in this awesome conversation that we decided to have today about school. And the reason why I brought Trang on, one, because she's basically an honorary roommate. Her boyfriend is my roommate, and so she basically is here all the time. But she also went to grad school. What was your major called?
Yoga studies.
For yoga studies, yeah. Which is like something you wouldn't even expect that there would be a major for. But it will definitely come into play as we talk about our thoughts and ideas a little bit more. But it was something that we were kind of just talking about in general, like how school is now, currently, and has been even when we were growing up and going to school. But, you know, the way that our school system is kind of set up right now is very much created for the Industrial Revolution, where you're creating people that are really good at taking orders and doing step-by-step processes and listening, being obedient, following direction, and yeah, like basically doing the types of things that would keep an industry alive or a factory going. But as you know, the Industrial Revolution is over and things are changing now. And so we were just trying to think of like ideas of how education can be different, or how maybe it should change along with the times as we're entering kind of this technological revolution. Do you want to talk a little bit about like your thoughts, you know, about like how jobs are changing?
Yeah, so I mean, when we were going to school, I think I excelled because I was able to follow the instructions. I was, naturally a good student because I followed the rules. And if you notice, the students who were deemed bad or who were in detention were more
rule breakers.
But they tended to also be like creative thinkers, or they would challenge the teacher, and teachers also weren't equipped to handle that kind of a relationship.
Totally.
And now the way that our economy is set up, our technological economy, it's the ones who are really valued are the ones who are innovating. All the startup companies, the ones who can creatively solve a solution, who can come up with new ideas in science and technology. And it's not so much the people who can do the repetitive factory-like jobs.
Especially because now we have this advancement in robots and like that type of technology. And as we know, like we see a lot of jobs being replaced by robots. And so any type of activity like that is now more efficiently done either by a robot or by a person in a third world country that is just a lot cheaper.
Yeah, so there's the driverless cars.
Totally.
McDonald's is putting in these kiosks so you can order at the kiosk, and then so they're taking the cashiers away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they're saying that their argument is that they're going to have those people do different jobs, such as waiting tables or customer service. But even there, you notice the trend is it's about relationship building, maintaining relationships. Right. It's about how you communicate with other people. It's about, again, being creative.
Or like something that isn't like high IQ, but more high EQ.
Right, something that robots can't yet do.
Right.
And so I'll talk about my master's because I think it'll lead into it. For my master's thesis, I created a curriculum, a yoga and mindfulness curriculum, to bring into schools as a way to better round out the education. Because right now it's very
math and science.
Yeah, math.
I mean, they took out the arts, basically.
Yeah, anything that wasn't important, so anything that that wasn't math, science, or literacy was pretty much deemed unimportant. And so what you have is people who can take tests really well, because the way we also quantify success in school is how well you do in a test. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're smart, or even knowledgeable on the subject. You just know how to study for a test.
Yeah.
Or your teacher prepared you well for a test.
That was me. It always went in one ear, take the test, out the other ear.
That's how you can cram and do really well. But what I was noticing, so I was teaching kids in school, and what I was noticing was so not just the kids in high school, but I was teaching kids in college as well, and even some of my students in the rehabilitation center that I worked at. The trend that I saw among everybody was their emotional intelligence. So how aware they are of their own emotions, and when they do become aware, how they handle it. And so even in high school kids, you see high anxiety level, high depression, insomnia, and the rehabilitation center students, they were really high functioning in society. So these are people who have a lot of money, they have successful jobs, successful careers, but at the same time, they lack so much knowledge on how to take care of themselves, or how to have a healthy relationship with another individual, and so that's why they're in the center. And so I saw, my master's was on yoga studies, yoga philosophy, and so I saw how yoga philosophy can actually really lend itself to teaching these topics in schools in a way that's approachable, that's very concrete and practical. So yoga, there's hundreds and hundreds of texts, but one of the most popular ones is the Yoga Sutras. And in the Yoga Sutras, there's 8 limbs of yoga. The first 2 are the yamas and the niyamas. The yamas and the niyamas are the moral observances and ethical practices, so like how you take care of yourself and how you take care of others. And then there's the asana, which is the physical practice that we see, and the breath work, and then meditation practices. So, and the book really outlines, it's very systematic in how it outlines these principles. So for the ethical observances, it's like non-stealing, non-harming, truthfulness. For how to take care of yourselves, it's cleanliness, purity, abstaining from things that would take away from your energy. So you can talk about it in terms of like sexual relationship that are harming, takes away from your energy, or unhealthy boundaries with friends, with family, or even just activities that would take away from you more than it gives you.
Right.
So that's another topic. So they're really approachable and topics that are not unique to yoga, but it's outlined really clearly and very concretely. And because there's a lot of depth to it, but at the same time it's so so vague that you can apply it to many different people.
Yeah. Well, I think that the interesting part, even just to start with, is that these are very important things for life, for living,
right.
And yet we don't learn about them in school. So where are you supposed to learn them? From your parents, from your community. But what if you, like, what is right? You know,
right.
what is, like, how are you supposed to learn how to take care of yourself? Like, what if, you know, you grew up with parents who were overworked all the time, who were stressed out all the time? You're only going to know how to act in that exact way. But why is it that we don't learn about how to take care of ourselves better emotionally, psychologically, physically was a part of it, but even that has been starting to get taken out of school curriculum and stuff like that. These are super important things.
Right.
And why is it not a focus? Why, especially like you were saying earlier, with this change in the technological revolution, and how it's basically isolating a lot of people where they don't know how to communicate with each other. They don't know how to talk person to person, let alone deal with social media bullying or stuff like that. Like, how do you learn how to deal with that? And isn't that way more important? Like, we're seeing so many deaths, and like people harming themselves because they're going through these situations where they are too stressed, they are not sleeping enough, they're depressed, and they're being hurt, and they don't know how to get over it. And so these are some solutions. What would be some ways that, because if you're not a yogi, what you're saying can still sound kind of like different in a way that like I don't really know what you mean. Like, how would you implement that into school? Or, it sounds like too far from a standard that people would naturally accept. They'd be like, oh, we don't need yoga in school, But breaking it down into these simple principles of like self-care, and like learning stuff like that. How can you transition what you're saying and what you're learning to even kids, or just a population of people that don't really know much about yoga?
Yeah, so I think I'll give an example of the way I would teach a class. So for my high school kids, we go through a very basic yoga class. They come in thinking, oh, I'm going to do yoga and meditation. And it's very simple. The most complicated pose would be like balancing on one leg. So it's very basic, like lunges, warrior one, warrior two. But when they get into a pose, let's say for the first time they're in warrior one, then the types of cueing that I would give them is, so how does this feel in your body? Does it hurt? What sensations are you feeling? Do you find it uncomfortable? Is it challenging for you? Do you notice if you're starting to get anxious or antsy? And is it because, and so after the first time, that's all I'm asking them to do is just take data.
Like, be aware of how they're feeling.
And there's no wrong or right, and it's just what are you feeling? What muscles are you feeling? What thoughts are going in your head? And then over time, you start to notice a pattern, like, oh, so every time I get into a pose that I'm not good at, my mind starts racing, or I immediately get
anxious or something.
Yeah. Or every time I fall out, I notice that I get mad at myself. And so when you start to notice these patterns, then you can then start to ask yourself, why is that? Or is there anything that I can do to change that? And then in that way, you can translate that over to the real world.
I think, that's really interesting, though, of teaching people to be very present in how they feel right now. Because even that is something that I don't think you really ever would learn to do, ever, like unless you got into meditation and started to understand what that world is like. I feel like we are always kind of programmed, like the American dream, being capitalist, like everything is about the future. Everything is about taking that next step and what's next, but we never think about what it's like to be in the present, which makes us miss a lot of what we're actually experiencing. We don't take account of how we really feel, and in many ways it'll build up, and then you'll crash at some point, emotionally, psychologically. Everything is not going to be balanced because you're not addressing them as they come, and then you don't even realize what it is that's causing those things either. You're just like, I just feel sad, and I cannot figure out why.
And even if you think about the traditional school curriculum, it's very, very rarely are you asked, how do you feel about this? Or what solutions would you propose? What do you think is right? It's usually,
this is the answer.
Right. This is what the book says, and so if you question the book, you're wrong. It's very... There's not enough time within the traditional school curriculum to really explore your own thoughts, because we have these tests that teachers have to prepare students for. And I mean, most classes are 15 minutes an hour.
Yeah.
Teachers don't have a lot of time with these students either, and so what you sacrifice is your own
creative process.
Yeah, your own thoughts.
Mm.
And so with a lot of the therapy students that I work with, so these are people who are suffering from anxiety, depression. They don't know how their own body is feeling. So if I say...
Or is it that they don't know how their body is feeling or why their body is feeling the way it does?
Either. So if I ask, how does this pose feel? A lot of times they don't really know how to answer that. Because they've never even spent the time to observe their own body. Or they think there's a right way, and because I'm not telling them how to feel, they don't know how to feel.
That's super interesting because I feel like that relates to the general population in general because you are taught so often, like there is a right answer or like this is the answer, or there's a path. We were talking about that earlier, is like our school system and the way society is right now kind of prepares us by saying, go down this path, and this is what a good life means. Like, go to school, get a job, buy a house, have a family, get married, and this is life. This is what you do. And then anything off of that road seems very unknown. Like, if you find yourself falling off of that path, then you think you're an outcast. Like, that's kind of what happened to me when... I found myself continuing to act even though I had gone to college, and then I went to grad school, and I was like, dude, I need to get a real job. Like, I can't just keep floating around and just having fun doing something I like to do. Like, I need a real job, and I need to settle down, and it literally stressed me out. Like, all the time, I was like, I need to find this thing that I'm supposed to do. And because it wasn't the answer that everything was telling me I was supposed to do, I felt very anxious and stressed about it. Actually, I would love for you to go into your journey after college, because Trang, it's so crazy. I mean, I think she was probably the start and kind of the initiator to, like, soul searching after college. Like, she was somebody who literally came out of college, had a great job, like probably a job that everybody would have wanted 5 years after college, and somehow she already had it. And, like everyone, like people would have died for the job that she had, making really good money, working for a really reputable company with a great position. And at one point she was just like, I'm gonna quit. And then she went on this journey, very similar to her boyfriend, who did that after her. But do you want to talk about that and kind of what your process was, what you were thinking about, and why you did that?
So, I had a vision of what life was supposed to be after college. So I worked really hard, high school, college, to get this fancy advertising marketing job, because I was taught that that's something that you want, that makes a lot of money, it's stable, it's like a flashy job. And I thought that's what I wanted because I'd been fed that so often as a kid. And near the end before I actually quit, maybe a year before I quit, I found myself just being really depressed, but not knowing why. Just kind of going through the motion of things, but not, just feeling very melancholy at best and sad at worst. So then I started just not fulfilled, and so then I started going back to something that I was doing in college, which was yoga. So every day before work, I would do yoga, and I realized, and I think that brought me a lot of clarity. I'm not so much an analytical person. I don't really think in words. I make decisions really from what I feel like is my heart. Yeah. But actually, your gut is still your brain doing the thinking. It's just more of your subconscious brain. So from my gut, I just decided I have to quit. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know that whatever I'm doing now, if I keep
the answer.
Yeah, and if I keep doing it 5 years from now, it's only going to be harder to quit. Every day that goes by, it's harder to make the change. So, unlike my boyfriend, who was very methodic about how he quit, I went in. I decided on Friday. On a Monday, I went in and I quit. And then
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't even make a label about that because it's also freaking awesome. Continue.
So I did that, and then I decided, and I was still kind of on this like, oh, I need to do what society tells me is the right thing to do. So I was like, I'll go back to get my MBA because that makes sense, right?
Yeah, if I'm not going to work, I'll just go back to school.
Yeah.
Good answer. That's what I did too.
So in preparation for that, I decided to do a month-long yoga teacher training just because, no reason. I made up some reasons to tell my parents, but really there was no real reason. And for the first time in that teacher training, I felt like I was doing what I wanted to do. Like it felt right. It didn't feel like I was putting on a mask and going to work. It felt like I was being trained but also working at the same time. And that was teaching yoga. But I never, from that day on, I never really planned. So when I got back, my plan wasn't to be a yoga teacher still. I was still so unsure about everything. But the yoga teaching jobs just kept coming to me. Mm-hmm. And so I was just going with the flow, taking the jobs, and then somehow that ended up now I've been teaching for 3 years. So
did you put anything out in the universe, like, of what you were looking for? Because I know you didn't really know. Like, why do you think those jobs were attracting to you? Yeah, like, coming to you.
Well, now that I have finished my master's, what I'm starting to realize is that it's not teaching yoga in and of itself that I was attracted to. It's what it gave me. So it gave me this feeling of like I'm helping provide something valuable for other people. I'm helping to make a difference, and it gave me a freedom of being able to make my own hours, having that flexibility. So what I realized that what I want to do, it's not an extreme of like working a corporate job 9 to 5 or just being this free-flowing yoga teacher without any structure. It's something in between that will allow me to give back as much as I want, as much as I can. And I'm realizing actually now that the best way might not be a full-time yoga teacher. Mm-hmm. It might be something where I can
spread the word to as many people as possible. And I think that's exactly what I feel like your purpose came to be. Mm-hmm. Was, yes, you learn through the practice. It's kind of similar to me with acting, I feel like I love getting jobs and I love doing the jobs, but it's not necessarily about the jobs that is the most fulfilling. It's being able to inspire others to like go after their dreams or to become better people and to watch them fulfill, their life goals and to see them grow as people. And maybe you were just the initiator for that. Right. Whether you are the role model or the inspiration or just the idea, or something that just motivated people to do that and make that change, I think, or just to take that step forward, then that's what it's worth. But I definitely think that your outlook on how education can be changed, or not changed, but just added to. Yeah. I think that needs to be discussed. That's not even something. That's why I wanted us to be talking about it right now. Was just this idea of like, hey guys, let's look at our system right now. Mm-hmm. What is it creating, and is this what we need? Like, is this what society? I mean, okay, let's go back to what we were talking about with the loss of jobs to robots. Right. You know, a lot of these people that are losing their jobs, they don't, number one, they don't even know how to deal with it psychologically and emotionally because they never thought they would lose their job. And we were never really taught through school, or if you didn't learn it by society or your family, how to be strong and stay like mentally healthy, you know, and be like, it's okay, there's another way, you know, like, I mean, so many people in the country have gone through depression just with these layoffs that are happening now. And we don't learn, or, you know, like, where are we supposed to learn how to deal with these downfalls? Like, isn't it supposed to be if you work hard, you're going to succeed? But these people have worked hard for a very long time, and now they're just getting cut and saying, sorry, we can't help you.
And actually, the people who are worse off are the people who have had pretty good lives with great parents who are supportive and nurturing, because then the trend would be that you haven't had any issues growing up, or you haven't had to deal with
never had to struggle, really.
Yeah, and imagine if your first big difficult life situation was when you're in your mid-20s or your
40s or your 60s.
Right.
Oh yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, how would you deal with, like, yeah, it's one thing to, like, to have something bad happen to you. Yeah, you're right, because, like, people that are from maybe lower income places are always struggling to figure out how they're going to survive. They're always getting let down, you know, or something like that, and so they're always picking themselves back up. Yet people that maybe live in middle to upper middle class, as long as they followed the system that was laid out for them, they were fine until now, when now they're not. And, I mean, think about, like she had mentioned earlier, the automated cars and the thought of Uber and Lyft. Like, those companies are great right now. They're providing so many jobs to so many people here. But their trend, they know, these companies know that they're going to change to, at least Uber. I'm not for sure about Lyft. But I would assume that they would do the same thing, that they would switch over to automated cars. Like, once that is legal and they can do that, that's the biggest way for them to profit, is to get rid of the liability of people and to not have to pay them, when cars are going to be able to drive themselves and be monetized through advertisements. Like, people are not going to be needed, and all those people that quit their jobs so that they could be Uber drivers are now going to be jobless again. And a lot of them are not in their 20s, you know? No. Like, a lot of them are much older. So try entering a new workforce then. What are they going to do?
And even just on the topic of Uber, with all of the controversy that's been happening with the CEO, even if you are able to be successful in this new technological economy, then what we're lacking is this moral education, right? So, so when we're in school and we're just being taught how to add, math, subtract, whatever, science, things that I'm not very good at, and you're so smart in those areas and you're able to innovate, you're creating all these products, and then suddenly you find yourself the CEO of a company, but you've never been taught really about how to think about ethics and morality. So then you have situations like we do now, where he's going to resign, or he has resigned, because he did a horrible job running the company in terms of ethics.
Making decisions that were good for people.
Yeah, ethically. And those types of situations will only get worse with the more we innovate. Because the more we innovate, we're pretty much entering uncharted territories in science and technology. Like, we don't really know the impacts. Right. But if we're not even thinking about it, that's only going to make the problem worse. And so we have, a lot of companies will have, you know, people who specialize in ethics and morality, and there's, you can get degrees in, like, bioethics, but that's not enough to have a few specialized individuals thinking about that. It needs to be pervasive. Everybody has to be thinking about that.
Yeah, it should be a part of the company culture. Right. But I think you're right. Like, as we talked about ethics in capitalism, I mean, we've seen it happen time and time again. I mean, think about the 2008 crashes and, like, the housing bubbles. Like, those are all because people were not ethical. I don't know. I tend to think that there is a problem with capitalism because there's always the top and there's always the bottom. That's the only way it works, is that there has to be people on the bottom to support the people on the top. But it seems to create not only this, like, huge wage gap and these class systems that are just completely dispersed, but people are not thinking about people. Yeah. And, like, if you are going, like I said, if you're going to run on, like, if you are going to run a company, there are going to be people that are under you, and they're not going to be benefiting as much as you. That's just not how it's going to work, and it a lot of times doesn't work that way. But that there is a huge lack in, I don't know though, because at the same time, I know my brain's going all over the place, because I think that our generation, like the millennials, are becoming a lot more conscious about it. But then at the same time, we're going to, like, Uber, and they're a millennial-created company, which was not that conscious. But I do think that there are companies like Tom's, you know, like Passion Planner. Like, there was a new one that I just met or heard about called En Route or something like that. It's a UCLA developed business, too. But these are, you know, very conscious companies that are thinking about the environment, about their company culture, and, like, the people that are supporting it and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, though, they are still running businesses, and they do still always think about how they're going to make money, because that's the only way that they can sustain making a change.
And that's how they're valued. And there's still companies that do good, and they're still nonprofits, but they're not the majority. There's still exception to the rules, and money still is valued over everything else. Yeah. Your own well-being,
yeah,
too.
Totally. I mean, that's why you see at least in LA, or, like, in big cities, LA, New York, the hustle. Right. You know, like, people work themselves so many hours that they end up getting sick, or they end up literally crashing, and people really don't care about their health as much as they should. You don't realize that, like, you have one vessel here on this earth, and it only lasts for so long, and if you don't take care of it, as much as your brain does good, we don't have the technology yet. I know they're working on it, on downloading your consciousness, but we don't have it yet for the public. So if your body dies, so does your conscience, or consciousness. You know, and, like, I don't understand why we aren't taught to value that just as much. Right. You know, like, taking care of our body and feeding it well and exercising it and keeping it alive just as much as we are the money we need to stay alive. Because there has to be some balance. And I mean, even some of my most successful, based on money, like how much money they have, are really bad at taking care of themselves. Yeah. And I don't know if that's worth it. Like, I don't know.
I mean, popular saying is, like, I'll sleep when I die, or what is the other one? Or, like, when you get sick and you think it's an honor to still go to work. You know, like, we wear these badges of honor that's really about, like, self-harm.
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm so busy, I haven't slept, so you get a slap on the back, you know, like
great job, you're a hard worker.
Right. But you know, you're weak if you're, oh, I need my 8 hours of sleep. Or I need to step back and take care of myself first.
Right.
Building those self-care routines.
That is really interesting. Because on the one hand, people, especially, like, people that would be running the companies, are thinking, well, we need you to be there for the company. And so maybe in people's minds, they're like, well, I'm helping the whole, you know, like, I'm doing it for what's better for the bigger cause, like, for everybody. But I think it's a similar thought to love, and, like, how, you know, they say, like, you can only get, like, you need to be whole first before you can try and like make other people happy or give love to somebody else. You have to
Right.
love yourself first. Otherwise, you're never really going to be able to love somebody else. It's just not going to work, you know?
You have to know how to take care of yourself and have a healthy relationship with yourself.
Totally.
But we're not taught that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really even value that.
But I definitely think it is something that should be taught or should be thought about.
Yeah, and even if you have, you know, the best parents who are
Loving and supportive.
attentive,
Mm-hmm.
it's still only one way of doing things and thinking about things. And so when it's taught in school, you can have a forum. So the teacher's there as a guide, but you know, you have your other classmates, you have other people that you can
Bounce ideas
Yeah.
off of.
and you can discuss, like, this is how I view relationships, this is how you view relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
What
there's
works for you, what
Yeah.
works for me, what could work for me or you, or doesn't work for us.
right.
I like that, though, the thought of making school a little bit more like dialogues. I think that happens a lot more in college
Right.
than it does when you're young.
But then not everyone ends up going to college.
True. And I think by that point, your brain is so structured already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know for me, like, I was so set on just doing well in school that by the time I got to college, my mom was like, okay, you made it into college. And mind you, she's a college professor, so she cares about college a lot. She's like, you made it in. Don't worry about your grades. Just go to school to learn. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I got it, you know? And then literally, like, until I was a senior, I didn't really grasp that concept. And I still went to school to get good grades.
Yeah.
And I got great grades, but what? Does it matter? You know, like, I didn't really connect with the material that I was learning or the people that I was with because I was so concerned about how I was going to do on the test and what kind of grades I was going to get. And I wasn't really being present. I just cared about what the end goal was.
Yeah, so in yoga therapy, so working with people who have mental illnesses or even physical illnesses, the way we talk about, like, let's say chronic pain, for example, is if you've been living with chronic pain for a year, you're not going to get rid of that pain in a month.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been living with that for 2-3 years, it's going to take almost as much time, if not more, to get rid of it. So same thing with a habit. If we've been building a habit since we were elementary school, high school, college, it's going to take so much work to unravel that.
Totally.
To break those bad habits down. So you want to start early talking about these things. You want to start when you're still malleable, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like, not even just bringing up the topics of things for people to be aware of, but knowing that, like, kids should be able to discuss it, that it should be a part of dialogue within the home, at school, in the community, that people are talking about how to be, you know, good to yourself as well as to others, and that is, like, actually an important lesson that you would learn. And, like, just like, you know, it's important to learn math and it's important to learn social studies, like, you should know it's important to learn self-care and relationships, how to have great relationships with other people. I think that we're losing a lot of that through social media, and as you see, like, kind of this, what would they be called, Gen Z? Generation Z?
I don't even know.
I don't know, but they're after us. You know, where they spend so much time looking at their phones and at their tablets and all through their social media that they literally don't know how to relate to each other, which is probably going to affect them when it comes to jobs because, you know, Trang is, like, looking to go back into the workforce. She's looking back at the job searches, and she was just saying, what were you could tell them?
Well, so I noticed the common job requirements are, like, you have to be a self-starter. You have to be able to communicate well. You have to be able to be creative and come up with ideas. And they're all soft skills. So at the very bottom, there's the little line that says proficiency in Microsoft and Excel, etc. But that's not what's important anymore because those things can be learned very quickly. But it's the interacting with people. It's how to think for yourself, how to communicate your ideas, your feelings, and how to be a team member. A lot of companies are also working in groups. So they're not they don't hire you just as an individual. When they hire you, they think about how you can work in a team effectively. So a lot of these things you have to learn over time. They're not really technical things that you can learn.
That you can just sit down and be like, I'm studying a book.
Right.
And this book is going to tell me exactly how to do this. Yeah, because a lot of it is social experiment. Like,
right.
literally, having encounters with people and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Understanding how to read people's emotions and seeing, like, because they're acting this way, maybe they feel like this. This is how I can approach them to see how I can help or how I can be a support to them. Or, and that's important in the workforce as well as just in everyday life.
Yeah, in college I took a class on how to handle conflicts.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And I was like, why didn't I learn this in high school,
Yeah, or younger, just in general. What'd you learn? That sounds cool.
I mean, a lot of stuff, but it was nonviolent communication and how to listen to your partner or how to listen to your friend and how to communicate your own feelings. And a lot of that, it was a lot of the same principles you do see in yoga and meditation. But, I mean, it was an elective class. Not everyone took it.
I know. Yeah. I would have liked to take that.
Yeah. So a very specialized group of people learn these skills, but they're life skills for everybody.
Right. That can be used at any time.
Yeah.
For work, for life.
And we had, sample arguments. Like, we'd go up and kind of role play.
Oh.
And a lot of times...
That would be so useful.
Right? Think of all of the fights I had in high school.
Like, how you could have dealt with it better so that people were better, more responsive to what you were really trying to communicate to them.
Less bullying. Like,
gosh. Yeah. See? That would have been... I mean, at least we know it's in a school.
Yeah, it exists, but it's just not top of mind for everybody in every school. Because our system is still... It comes back to still the Common Core standards. At least that's what the United States use to measure how successful schools are, and that's how well you read, how well you perform these math equations, answer some science questions. But it's not. None of that tests you as a person.
Yeah, I don't know. When I talk to kids, it's probably not the best thing to say to them. But a lot of times, I'm like, a lot of the stuff that you learn in school is the most important part is not necessarily the knowledge, because everything that you learn you can find on Google now.
Right.
So, but what are the skills that you're actually learning? It might be, perseverance, like working hard, working in groups and teams, learning to communicate with others, learning to comprehend, for sure. Time management, social skills, networking, but those are the most important things that you're taking out of going to school.
Right.
That you can't actually access through Google. Google solves everything.
But if you even think about what we've learned, like, I don't think I can't even remember what I learned in high school and middle school.
I can't even remember. Yeah, I can't even remember what I learned in college, and that wasn't even that long ago. I'm like, don't ask me any question. I don't know the answer. Let me Google it.
Exactly. And with all that technology, it's less important to even learn those skills. I mean,
it's good to know in general.
And you still have to know how to read and write.
I mean, that's a skill, to know. But the actual, content, you could essentially just look up. And to become more specialized kind of makes more sense. Like, for you to learn the things that you want to learn about, because you're going to forget all the stuff you don't care about anyway, so why waste so much time learning things you don't want to know?
Well, so something that Finland is doing that's really cool, they're going to experiment with it they started the experiment last school year, but they're doing student-led learning initiatives. So,
that's neat.
So instead of learning like math, science, whatever, you as a group come together and decide what relevant topics you want to explore and questions you want to answer. So, for example, current climate change. So that is a topic, and then to answer that question or to explore that topic, you have to bring in math skills, science skills, reading, writing, but you're learning through it by addressing a very relevant current topic.
That you're interested in.
That you've decided as a whole that as students, this is what I want to talk about, this is what I want to learn. And so they're experimenting with that, and I think it's really cool because then you care about it. Then you have some kind of buy-in, like, I made this decision to learn that, so I'm going to be engaged. Yeah. And it's how you actually think in the real world. You don't think, your brain isn't really divided in that way. You know, when you solve a problem, you want to be approaching it from multiple angles. That's how you usually get the best answer. You don't want to just be whatever. If you approach a problem with just one solution, you're not going to get a very innovative.
Yeah, I started reading the book The Originals, and that's basically the point, or like one of the key points that the author was talking about was like these people that come up with original ideas. It's not because they're special, it's because they output the most ideas. So they continuously are like, it's like they're not credited for all the ones that they failed at. Like you didn't say, oh, but they failed 500 times. All you think about is, yeah, but those 4 times that they were super successful with their idea makes them innovators. That's what makes them originals, you know?
Yeah.
So it is about that.
Yeah, and even like, you know, they always talk about Steve Jobs and when he took the calligraphy class or the typography class, there wasn't an immediate explicit benefit for taking the class. It came afterwards, but it was him exploring his interests and taking different skills or knowledge from different areas and bringing them together to create something that is innovative.
And I think that is a great place to start for people in the situation who either feel unfulfilled and are looking for a way to get out but don't know really where to go from there, or for the people that have like been laid off and don't know how to approach the future, like they don't know the next solution, is to really start by going back to what interests you. Like even if it doesn't make sense, like even if taking a typography class doesn't seem like you're going to get a job out of that, that's going to make you a lot of money, it can maybe inspire something that will lead you into a different profession that, you know, will take off in a different way that you never would have expected. But at least it's starting those creative juices to kind of get you thinking and opening yourself up to new opportunities. Like, one of the things that I always tell my mentors is to just put yourself out there and put your dreams out there. So tell people what you're interested in or what it is that you're thinking about, and also throw yourself into situations where you're around that. Even though if it's not the exact thing, like even if you can't say, I want to be the lead actress in a blockbuster movie, you can't be like, I'm just going to be that. But you can start making things, and you can start getting yourself in the position, the situation, to be around people that are doing that kind of stuff, and you might end up finding yourself going along that path and getting to a place that you really enjoy and what really fulfills you, because you're going after something that you really care about or that you like.
And even that, the putting yourself out there is a practice, and that's a practice that in yoga, at least for my students, I encourage all the time. You know, it's like, try this pose. Put yourself out there. Let yourself fall. It's okay to fail. So, and it's a very safe space. You know, you're in a safe room with people that you've been practicing with. You're on your mat. It's okay for you to fail here and get comfortable with that idea of trying, not succeeding, trying again, until one day you're balancing in tree pose, and, you know, like, but you can't get there without trying, without practicing. And then when you're comfortable doing that on the mat, then it just naturally translates over to other parts in your life.
Yeah, I think that is another thing that we that somehow we grew up with is like this fear of failure. Like you don't want to choose the wrong thing, so you end up stalling yourself and not making any decisions, or you end up not really going after what you really want because you're afraid of not actually succeeding at it or not getting yourself there. Yet the most successful people are the ones that just took the step and probably fell and, you know, and just got themselves back up. But that's the key. That's the thing that we all need to develop is how do you strengthen your inner self so that you can pull yourself back up, so that you can motivate yourself to take the next step, and that you can keep persevering through to doing what you want to do and realize you're going to get somewhere.
Yeah.
If you just keep going.
And that's also the danger with social media is because you only see the people who succeed or you only see their highlight reel, right? Mm-hmm. So the kids are also growing up seeing photos of their friends that are perfectly staged in Photoshop, or you only post when you have a big accomplishment. No one's posting when they are
sad and depressed.
Yeah. Or
unless they're trying to get
attention. Yeah. But you know, more often than not, they don't post about an F in a class,
right,
or failing a test. They post about getting an A plus or getting a scholarship, graduating from medical school. You know, the accomplishments that then you, when you're down and you look on social media and you see that, and then you start feeling bad for yourself. And because we
don't talk about we don't even talk about that conversation, you know, about don't compare yourselves to others, don't judge yourself, There's a really good book, I've talked about it before, called The 4 Agreements. And one of the key agreements is don't take things personally. But it's very hard to not do that,
right,
you know, but it kind of just talks about how everything that people say and do is just a reflection of what's happening to them. And so if they're being nice to you or if they're being mean to you, it probably has to do with whatever's going on within them. So don't take it, you know, just like let them be, and if anything, just return love to them because that's who you want to be and that's what you want in your life.
And if anything, again, with social media, we've become more egocentric because it's all about our Instagram page, our Facebook page, how the image that we give off, the image that we really craft, right? And it's about how many likes you get. Why didn't that one person follow me back? Or why didn't they like the thing that I just posted? So it's really reinforcing that, like, that take it personal. And it's not
and how to
emotionally healthy.
Yeah, like how to be self-confident, self-loving. You know, it's not something that we learn that often. If anything, what social media has created has probably done the opposite of that for most people. Has created a lot of like inner, what's the word, not hate, but just kind of judgment, inner judgment, that probably isn't good for a lot of our self-esteems and our mind and our psychology and our health, like just our mental health.
And there's a difference between self-loving and confidence and being conceited or self-absorbed, right? Like with the yoga practice, it's you love yourself when you're failing. Like you want to love yourself. You don't want to applaud yourself if you're
doing great
in a pose or if this class is easy for you. You want to. It's the times when you're not doing so well, that you're struggling, that you want to have those feelings, that you want to still not judge, not self-loathe. And that's why, so in yoga, you're never supposed to be attached to your successes, or even in meditation. So if you have a really good meditation session, let's say, or one day you got into a really fancy pose, you're not supposed to be attached to those because the next time that may not happen again. And you especially see this with meditation because your mind is different every day. There's so many circumstances that affect how you're thinking. So my teacher talked about this a lot when we were in our teacher training. We were meditating every day, and she would ask us how we were doing or like how we felt afterwards. And if you were like, oh, I had this moment and it felt like I was getting somewhere, you're supposed to just get rid of that. Like, cool, acknowledge that that's what you felt, but then move on. Because the next day, it's going to be different. And it's not about one being better than the other, or it's not about striving to get back to that same place, but just accepting that today this is where I am, and it's going to change again tomorrow, the next day. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, or there's something good about a good meditation session either. They're just all equal.
What are some things that either you know from your practice or that you've learned along the way that, like, when you notice yourself or other people going into that state where they are self-judging or self-kind of hating, or you are getting into that negative mentality, what are you supposed to do to take yourself out of it, or to change your mentality, or to not go there, to not do that?
Well, I think the most important is just becoming aware of it, because we're pretty smart. As soon as we become aware of those things, we can self-correct, and it's usually the ignorance that keeps us
in the spiral.
But as soon as you notice, oh, I'm upset because I'm on my period, suddenly that has less of a power on you. You've now labeled why it is that you're upset, or you're now aware of what it is. It's no longer this big, mystical, mysterious thing.
Right.
And then you have
control over it.
You have the power to change it. So that's usually the first step. So what I just remind students is just notice. Don't label it being as wrong, as right, yes, no. It's just, I'm mad. Or I hate this pose, or I really like this pose, I want to keep doing it, or I'm really good at it. It's not, neither one is a good or bad feeling. So you can have feelings, but there's also a neutrality that goes along with it.
Yeah, I like that. The thought of just trying to keep yourself in a balance and not celebrating I definitely promote celebrating everything, celebrating life, because I think being positive is a key to a happy life. but kind of finding that, trying to get back to the neutral all the time, and
not being attached to it.
Right, like, it's not about the successes, though you can be happy in your successes and you can feel low in your lows, but it's you continuing on, which is what you're proud of. And that's what makes you feel good, is like, no matter what happens, your ups and your downs, if you can get back to your stable and feel whole and just feel great, about life and yourself, that's where you want to be, and that's what's to celebrate.
Yeah, like knowing that it's okay to be angry, to be sad, to be happy, but you're not looking for any of those emotions. You're not going out and striving to be happy all the time, or you're not trying to be sad, dwell in your miseries or anything like that. But it's just welcoming it as it comes, because we're human. We have all these different emotions. We're going to experience all of them, and it's just about how you can maintain that balanced state. So in yoga, you would check yourself based on your breath. So if you're struggling in a pose, or let's say you're going into a difficult pose, the challenge that I give my students is to maintain your breath.
What does that mean?
So if let's say you're in tree pose, so you're balancing on one leg.
Okay.
And you're falling in and out. My challenge to the student is, if I close my eyes and just listen to you breathing, can your breath maintain the same rhythm? So I can't tell that you're moving at all. And it's that like steady approach to it. So so you're still experiencing things, you're still experiencing maybe frustration, tired, anger, whatever, but your breath is still steady. There's still that anchor there that goes along the whole time, and that's how that's how you can maintain that balance.
Yeah, what it made me think of actually is like, let's just go back to acting again. Everything relates to acting. You know, like when you get a job, you know, you go on this high. And when you don't have a job or you haven't got one in a while, a lot of times it sends you into a very low because people tend to tie their successes to the outcomes. But if we were able to enjoy that journey, just the path of doing it, and not like, yes, experience the highs and you might have to experience the lows, but being very comfortable and confident in the neutral, like the journey to get there and all the in between, that will allow you to bounce back to a good state. Because what happens especially is like you book a job and you're on it for a month and it's great and you're on this high, and as soon as it stops you just go so low because now life is just not as good, you know. But if you don't tie your happiness,
your identity,
and your identity to this job, and you just say, I'm happy and I'm lucky that I get to do this opportunity today. You know, you'll always fall back. You won't fall down. You'll just fall straight, or you know, you'll just come down to a neutral space.
So like when Buddhism talks about equanimity a lot, and it gets misinterpreted as like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel anything towards anything, but it's about not. It's more so not being averse to something or not being too attached and drawn to something. So you can feel things, but it's not about pushing, I don't want to feel these negative emotions and I only want to feel the good. I'm okay with feeling the bad and the good. So there's that difference. It's not a lack of feeling, it's an openness to all feelings.
Interesting. We should have another podcast about Buddhism.
Yeah.
You studied a lot about that too, right? I'll have to go into it because I don't know very much about it. But before we sign off, I want you to tell them about your summer kids yoga thing.
So I'm going to continue my kids yoga training this summer with We Yogis. They're doing a 95-hour, 10-day intensive in Ojai. If you guys are interested, anybody, please visit weyogis.com.
I'll put it in the info as
okay,
well.
Perfect.
But you might as well spell it out, right?
So,
why not?
WEEYOGIS.com. She's a great teacher, great mentor, and she's really been the one that's propelled me onto this path that started my journey with teaching kids. So yeah, join me if you can.
Maybe I'll get a promo code. I'll try. Get you a discount. Anyways, let's see who joined us that I can say hello to. Hi, Brett. Hi, Ricardo. Hi, Liz. Hi, Miguel. Hi, Jer. Oh, Christine was on, but she didn't say anything. Ryan, Charisse, John, Josh, Shannon, Wes. Thank you guys. Oh, Christina was on too. Thank you guys all for joining us. Spread the convo, you know, get it talking, start talking to people about these important things that, you know, will just make us better human beings.
There's still a lot to talk about.
I know. And we will continue Nights with Nikki. All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.